The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Hayes pushed his cleaning cart down the marble corridor of Chen Industries' executive floor, his hands still trembling from the interview that had saved his life. He didn't know yet that the woman who'd barely looked up from her paperwork while approving his hire would soon become the reason his daughter smiled again. He didn't know that behind Victoria Chen's ice-cold exterior lived a heart that had forgotten how to beat for anyone but herself. And he certainly didn't know that his 7-year-old daughter Emma had already met the terrifying CEO, in a moment that would unravel everything. Marcus had been scraping by for 2 years since the accident took his wife, Sarah. Every job application felt like begging, every rejection another crack in his armor. The medical bills from Emma's ongoing therapy sessions piled up like accusations on his kitchen table, reminders that grief was expensive and single parenthood was a luxury he couldn't afford. When the staffing agency called about a night janitor position at one of the city's most prestigious tech companies, he'd swallowed his pride, his MBA felt like a cruel joke now, and said yes before they could finish the sentence. The executive floor was silent at 10 p.m., exactly how Victoria Chen preferred it. She sat behind her glass desk, the city lights spreading behind her like a kingdom she'd conquered through sheer will in 70-hour work weeks. At 38, she'd built Chen Industries from a failing import business into a tech giant, and the cost had been everything soft inside her. 3 broken engagements, a family that stopped calling, friends who became professional contacts who became strangers. The business magazines called her brilliant. Her employees called her the Ice Queen when they thought she couldn't hear. She barely registered the janitor's existence those first few weeks. He was just another service worker, invisible in the way people become when you stop seeing humans and only see functions. Marcus kept his head down, did his work with quiet efficiency, and tried not to think about how he used to walk these same halls in a tailored suit before the world fell apart. But Emma noticed everything. The breakthrough came on a Saturday morning, 6 weeks into Marcus's new job. Victoria had dragged herself to the annual company volunteer day at Riverside Children's Hospital, pure PR, nothing more. She stood in the pediatric ward with a forced smile, wondering how quickly she could leave, when a small voice stopped her cold. "You're the sad lady from the park." Victoria turned to find a little girl with dark curls and enormous brown eyes, one leg in a decorated cast, sitting in a wheelchair decorated with butterfly stickers. "Excuse me, from Miller Park. 3 weeks ago, you were crying on the bench by the fountain. I gave you my cookie because my daddy says cookies make everything better, even when nothing can be better." The memory crashed over Victoria like cold water. She'd been at the park after the board meeting from hell, after they'd questioned her vision, after she'd realized she had no one to call, no one who cared if she succeeded or failed. She'd sat on that bench and let herself cry for the first time in years. And yes, a little girl had appeared like some tiny angel and pressed a chocolate chip cookie into her hand, saying nothing else, just that simple gesture that had cracked something in Victoria's chest. "That was you," Victoria whispered, lowering herself to the girl's eye level. "I'm Emma, Emma Hayes. Are you less sad now?" Something in Victoria's throat tightened. "I don't know, sweetheart. Are you okay? Your leg, car accident. But I'm brave. My daddy says I'm the bravest person he knows." Emma's smile dimmed slightly. "Sometimes I hear him crying at night though. He doesn't know I know. He thinks I'm like you were, that I don't see him." Victoria sat with Emma for 2 hours that day, longer than she'd spent with any single person outside of work in years. They talked about everything and nothing. Emma told her about her mother, who she said became a star because that's where special people go. She talked about her dad who worked so hard but was always tired now, who helped her with homework even when he had bags under his eyes, who never missed her physical therapy appointments even though she knew money was tight. "What does your daddy do?" Victoria asked, something stirring in her chest. "He cleans buildings at night. He used to have a big important job, but then mommy died and I got hurt and everything changed. But he says we're going to be okay. He promises every night." When Victoria returned to the office Monday, she couldn't stop thinking about Emma. She found herself walking the executive floor at odd hours, noticing for the first time the man who cleaned her office. Really noticing the careful way he handled things, the efficiency of his work, the quiet dignity in his movements. And then she saw the photograph tucked into his cleaning cart, a little girl with dark curls and butterfly stickers. Her heart stopped. She called HR immediately. The night janitor on the executive floor, Marcus Hayes. "Send me his file." The story in those papers made her hands shake. MIT graduate, MBA from Stanford. Senior analyst at Morrison Financial before the company collapsed in scandal. Wife killed by a drunk driver 2 years ago. Daughter severely injured in the same accident. Gap in employment. Multiple rejections. Finally hired by Chen Industries 6 weeks ago for a position grotesquely beneath his qualifications. Victoria had built her empire by being ruthless. But she'd also built it by recognizing talent when everyone else was blind to it. And more than that, something else was happening, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Emma's face kept appearing in her mind. That little girl's kindness in the park. The way she'd seen Victoria's pain when Victoria had spent years making sure no one could. She waited until midnight, then went to the executive floor. Marcus was polishing the conference table when he looked up and froze. Victoria Chen stood in the doorway, and for the first time since he'd started, she was really looking at him. "Mr. Hayes, could we talk?" He straightened, anxiety spiking. "Ma'am, is something wrong with my work?" "Sit down, Marcus, please." The next 20 minutes changed everything. Victoria told him about meeting Emma at the hospital. About the park. About reading his file and realizing what she'd done, what they'd all done, by making him invisible. "I don't understand," Marcus said, his voice rough. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've spent 10 years building this company and I forgot why I started. Because your daughter gave me a cookie when I was crying and didn't ask for anything in return. Because I'm tired of being the person who doesn't see people." Victoria's voice cracked. "And because you're brilliant and you're wasted here and I want to fix that if you'll let me." Marcus stared at her. "I don't need charity." "Good. Because I don't give it. I need a new director of operations. The last one quit yesterday. It's a high-pressure position that requires analytical thinking, crisis management, and the ability to rebuild broken systems. Your resume tells me you can do it. But more than that, your daughter tells me you're someone who keeps promises even when it costs you everything. That's who I need. I've been out of the game for 2 years. And I've been out of the human race for 10. Maybe we both need a fresh start." Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The salary she named was more than he'd made before. The benefits included the kind of health insurance that would cover Emma's therapy without him lying awake doing math in his head. "Why?" he finally asked. "Really why?" Victoria's mask cracked completely. "Because Emma asked me if I was less sad, and I realized I've been sad for so long I forgot what else I could be. Because she saw me when I was invisible, and now I want to be the kind of person who sees other people. Because maybe if I help you, I'll remember how to help myself." The transformation didn't happen overnight. Marcus stepped into his new role with a combination of terror and determination, and Victoria was demanding, exacting, and difficult. But she was also fair, patient, and occasionally, surprisingly kind. Emma changed everything simply by being herself. Victoria started having lunch with Marcus once a week to discuss operations, and somehow Emma kept appearing in the conversation. Her latest drawing, her progress in physical therapy, the joke she'd told that morning. Marcus, desperate to protect his daughter from more loss, had kept his world separate. But Victoria kept asking, kept showing interest, and slowly, reluctantly, he let her in. The first time Victoria attended one of Emma's physical therapy sessions, she arrived in her business suit and heels, looking completely out of place among the parents in yoga pants and tired expressions. Emma's face lit up like the sun. "The sad lady. Daddy, it's the sad lady from the park. Are you friends now?" Marcus and Victoria looked at each other, and something passed between them that neither was ready to name. "Yeah, sweetheart," Marcus said softly. "We're friends now." Victoria started changing. Her employees noticed first, the way she remembered their names now, asked about their families, actually listened to their ideas. She still worked long hours, but she left at 6 on Wednesdays to watch Emma's therapy sessions. She still demanded excellence, but she also started saying thank you. The Ice Queen was melting, and the company didn't know what to do with this woman who smiled occasionally and had a child's drawing taped to her office wall. Marcus changed too. The exhaustion lifted from his eyes. His confidence returned. He was brilliant at his job, transforming operations in ways that saved the company millions and made everyone's work easier. But more than that, he started believing again, in himself, in the future, in the possibility that happiness wasn't something that died in a car accident 2 years ago. 8 months after that midnight conversation, Victoria arrived at Emma's 8th birthday party, the first birthday party she'd attended since she was a child herself. She brought an extravagant dollhouse that made Emma shriek with joy and made Marcus shake his head with a smile that said he'd given up arguing with Victoria's gift-giving. Later, while Emma played with other kids, Marcus and Victoria stood on his apartment balcony, watching the sunset paint the city gold. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "For everything. For seeing us. Thank you for letting me," Victoria replied. "I didn't know how lonely I was until I wasn't anymore. Emma asks about you constantly. When are you coming over? What did you think of her drawing? Did you like the story she wrote?" He paused. "She asked me the other day if you could be her family too." Victoria's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" Marcus turned to face her fully, and his expression held something she'd stopped believing existed. "I told her that families come in all shapes. That sometimes the people who matter most aren't the ones you're born with but the ones who choose to stay. That love doesn't follow the rules we expect it to." "Marcus, I'm falling in love with you, Victoria. I've been falling for months. I know it's complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea to fall for your boss, but Emma saw something in you before I did. She saw past all the walls to the person you really are. And now I see it too." Victoria felt tears on her cheeks, the second time she'd cried in years, both times connected to the Hayes family. "I'm not good at this. At being soft. At being someone who can be counted on for more than a paycheck. You showed up to every single one of Emma's therapy sessions for 4 months. You learned to braid her hair because she asked you to. You restructured our health benefits so every employee has better coverage because you saw what medical debt does to families. You're better at this than you think." "I'm scared," Victoria whispered. "Good, me too, but Emma taught me something when her mother died. She taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and choosing to love anyway." They stood there as the sun set, two broken people who'd found each other because a little girl believed in cookies and kindness and saw the sad lady no one else noticed. The wedding happened a year later, small and perfect, with Emma as the flower girl wearing a dress she'd picked out herself. She stood between Marcus and Victoria during the vows, holding both their hands, and when they kissed she cheered so loudly everyone laughed. At the reception, Victoria looked around at the gathered employees, friends, and the small family she'd finally led back into her life, and felt something she hadn't felt in 15 years, complete. Emma tugged on her dress. "Are you sad anymore?" Victoria lifted her daughter now, officially and forever, into her arms. "No, baby, I'm not sad anymore." "Good. Because families aren't supposed to be sad. They're supposed to make everything better." "You're absolutely right." Victoria kissed her forehead. "You made everything better." That night, as Victoria and Marcus tucked Emma into bed in their new house, Emma said sleepily, "I knew you needed us. That day in the park. I could tell you were lonely like Daddy was lonely. I'm glad I gave you that cookie." "Me too, sweetheart," Victoria whispered. "Best cookie I ever had." As they left Emma's room, Marcus took Victoria's hand. They stood in the hallway of their home, and marveled at the journey. "She saved us both," Marcus said. "No," Victoria corrected gently. "She taught us how to save ourselves. By seeing each other. By being brave enough to be vulnerable. By believing that broken things can be beautiful when they're put back together with love." Years later, when people asked Victoria about her success, she never talked about the business deals or the profit margins. She talked about a little girl who gave a cookie to a crying stranger. About a man who kept his dignity when the world tried to take it. About the moment she stopped being invisible to herself. Because in the end, that's what Emma's gift had been. Not the cookie, not even the kindness, but the simple act of seeing someone who desperately needed to be seen. Of recognizing that behind every title, every role, every carefully constructed wall, lived a human being who needed connection just as much as they needed air. The angry female CEO had hired a new janitor looking for efficiency. Instead, she found family. And that made all the difference.